All right, down here at the boat today, and we have the beginnings of Tropical Storm Ophelia coming up the Chesapeake Bay. And right now the wind outside is howling, and the waves are rocking the boat at the dock. So I came down to check on the boat, put some extra fenders out, and check the lines, maybe throw a couple extra lines out. I also want to take the bimini down because it's kind of like flapping in the wind up there, and I don't want any damage to happen to it. And then I also have an idea for a sewing project that I want to look at, and so I'll bring those parts home today and try to get started on it this weekend. Maybe the noise that you can hear out there is one of the fenders blowing around and hitting things. So good thing I came down to put extra fenders out. All right, so here's my idea. We have a panel that goes in between the top of the bimini here and the Dodger down here, and it just zips in across there, and then it zips in across the bimini at the top. And the only thing I don't like about having it up there is once it's up here, you can't see the top of the sail, or you can't see up the top of the mast, so it makes it kind of difficult to see what's happening up there. There's a little window right back here in the bimini, so if you unzip this, there's a window back there that I replaced once. So I have some extra of that clear glass in there, so I'm thinking I'm just going to take this piece here and cut a hole in it and then fill it up with glass. So this boat over here, the sail cover is coming off. When I got here, it was like all the way off. I tried to reattach it, but the snaps aren't like functioning very well, so I don't want to tie anything on it because I don't want to cause any chafe issues with the sail, but they might lose that. And I got an extra line over there, the white one on the piling, because that line that was on there is kind of small, and also it's kind of chafing in some spots, but it's kind of been like that. Probably needs replaced. Better to put an extra line on there. Okay, here we are back at home. This is the leftover glass that I had from the last repair project that I did. So I want to get a piece here and cut it out so that it fits into this little piece that goes in between the bimini and Dodger. And then this piece here is an extra piece of canvas that I had, and that's going to end up being the cover that covers that up when it's not in use, as well as the binding that's going to go on there. Now here I've got everything laid out on the canvas. This is going to end up being the cover that goes over the glass, as well as the binding. It's all straight cut binding. I didn't do bias cut because I don't think you need to do that for canvas. It's my understanding that bias cut helps prevent like fabric from becoming like stiffer on the edges. But since this thing doesn't move, it doesn't really matter, so it's all straight binding. And plus bias cut binding uses up a lot of material, so I'd like to avoid that as best I can. The next part is ironing the binding. So this helps keep it flat and makes it more manageable when you're trying to sew it. Once you iron this material, it stays almost a permanent crease in there, so it's a lot easier to maneuver, especially binding, when you're trying to move it around the sewing machine and hold it in place. Now it's time to put the binding on the glass. So here I started out using the swing away binder that I got with the machine, but it ended up causing problems because the binding had to be joined in a couple of spots to make it long enough, and that didn't feed through the swing away binder very easily. So I ended up instead just kind of holding it in place, which worked out fine because the binding was plenty big enough and it wasn't too difficult to manage. So here are two things that I just printed on my 3D printer at school the other day, and they're turning out to come in handy here. They're bobbin holders. This one is, I like this one just because it's small and the bobbins just snap in there like that.
but it's the way it's so small that I think it's going to break, because normally like they'll break along the seams, and this one is starting to develop a crack along here, so it will eventually break. But I'd like to try to make one like this one. This one though doesn't fit these Sailrite bobbins. It's more for like the regular smaller Singer bobbins. So I'm going to take this design, which I downloaded both of these from the internet, but I'm going to take this design and make it a little bit bigger to hold the Sailrite bobbins. But I do like this one because it's nice and small and holds them in there pretty compact and tight. I may try to take this one and modify it some, make it a little thicker, and hopefully it won't break when you squeeze the bobbins in there. But a neat little 3D printing project to go along with the sewing. Now it's time to cut the hole in the top. In retrospect, I kind of wish I would have cut the hole first and then cut the glass to fit the hole, but I kind of did the opposite. I started out with the glass and then I cut the hole, but what I'm cutting here is actually something that I've measured and laid out at the same time I did the glass. So what ended up happening is I think there was a slight difference in size between the two, which I think kind of didn't help later on when I tried to put these together, and I had some problems with the binding inside this hole. Now I've got the hole cut, and I'm putting a binding on the inside of the hole, and the main reason I did this instead of hemming it is because I didn't like what hemming would do to the corners, but it actually proved harder to get the binding around the inside corner than probably if I hemmed it. So in hindsight, probably I would have gone back and did this as a hem instead of putting binding. I think everything would have matched up a lot better. All the binding is finished, and unfortunately I didn't record anything after this, so what I ended up doing is putting the glass in there and then the cover, and then from here I'm taking it to the boat and we're going to make sure that it fits on there. There's the new window, and I got this cover on, put some 550 cord on there so we can roll it up, and then that you can just pop that off and Velcro it up. Ow. And then it's all covered up. So that sewing project is done for now. It's not perfect. I had some problems getting everything lined up in the end, especially the way I did it, putting binding on both the glass and on the inside of the hole. I probably should have just hemmed the inside of the hole and then attached the binding to that. But the way I did it, it was hard to get the binding on the inside, and that caused a problem lining up later. But I still may end up taking it apart again in the future sometime just to kind of make it look a little nicer. But it's good enough for now, so we'll go with what we got. I'm going to call that project done for now, and I'll wrap this up today. Got the bimini back on after the storm we had last week, and no problems with the boat over the storm. Everything turned out okay, and that's all I got for today, I think. Next weekend is I think the powerboat show, and then the weekend after that is the sailboat show. So I'll probably put a video out. The next one will be about the sailboat show, and try to get some good footage of that in the next couple of weeks. So that's all I got. See you all later.